This video has words starting with AN. Testosterone in promoting the growth of muscles. Such hormones are used medicinally to treat some forms of weight loss and illegally by some athletes and sports players to enhance physical performance. Anabolic steroids could be prescribed by doctor, but that refers it refers to muscle building. The main difference between other drugs and steroids is this is a synthetic drug, meaning it does not derive from a plant. So basically it is a drug or hormonal substances chemically related to testosterone, a male hormone that promotes muscle strength. Okay, what do you understand when I say anachronism or anachronistic? Andrea is an old-fashioned name because anachronism is an out of date or old fashioned. For example, in the age of digital media, researching information in a library seems anachronistic. Or you can say our current laws about not being able to drink until you're 21 are anachronistic, which means old fashioned, something that is not in its correct, it is not correct in this time because it was written some years ago according to that context. So it is existing in a period where it does not appropriate. So you can say the town is a throwback to medieval times. Yeah, it's still present, but the anachronism that has survived the passing years, which means it doesn't fit into this modern era, but that's the reason we call it an anachronism, but still it exists now. And also, if you're using typewriters, typing and writing typewriting in the era of computers, you will be considered as anachronistic. And sometimes if the parents are old-fashioned, the kid, you can say she is rebelling against the anachronistic morality of her parents or anachronistic ideas of her parents, which should be very clearly old-fashioned. For example, conspicuously old-fashioned. It is belonging or appropriate to an earlier period, especially so as to seem conspicuously old-fashioned. And anemia in British and anemia in American is basically a condition in which there is a deficiency of red cells or of hemoglobin in blood, resulting in weariness, tiredness, or sometimes generally it is lacking in color, spirit, or virality. So we can call the plant looks anemic. And have you ever heard anesthesia or anesthetic? This word is derived from a Greek word and it means lack of sensation. So today it is a process used to relieve pain and suffering during surgical intervention. Like when you are getting a tooth extracted, you will be given some anesthesia to reduce your senses of pain. So it is a substance that induces insensitivity to pain. And then administer an anesthetic to a person or animal, especially so as to induce a loss of consciousness. It also happens during the medical procedures. I was called to casualty to anesthetise a patient. And during anesthesia, the body temperature falls due to the effects of the drug. So in American English, it is anesthesia. Shereen, what comes in your mind when I say the word Anaglyph? Anaglyph. You feel that something is glowing, right? But can you see a glowing thing on the wall? Because Anaglyph is the trademark name of a type of thick embossed, which means thick molded or stamped wallpaper designed to be painted over. Okay, so and being a natural material, Anaglyph, so that's why you got the name glowing. Anaglyph expands on pasting on the wall. Okay, when I asked Shereen what do you understand by anagrams, she says something related to the grams. Yes, it is not related to the grams, actually it is related to the mouth with which you eat the grams, because anagram is a word or phrase or name formed by rearranging the letters of another, such as spar, formed from rasp, okay, and silent can form this word listen. So the other anagrams are fried and fired, and gainly and laying, sadder and dreads, listen, silent, race, care are anagrams, part, trap are anagrams, heart and earth are anagrams, triangle and integral are anagrams. Sometimes anagrams may be created as a commentary on the subject. For example, you can say debit card as bad credit, and you can also call angered as enraged, and what else? Funeral could be at the anagram of real fun. So because it's like a numerous thing, grams is a numerous thing, it is like you can interchange and form not numerous but yeah, two words has the same spellings. We all know what an anus is, that excretes the waste from the large intestine, and there is also an anal sphincter, which means it is situated near the anus, okay. And informally, anal also means anal retentive. Retentive means you're just retaining your ability to keep or absorb, or you're just keeping ability to remember. So basically, if you remember everything, you will become nitpicky or fuzzy. So that is also called anal or anal retentive. He is anal about things like that because he is fuzzy about things like that. So there's a kind of personality called anal retentive personality. Those kids will be very meticulous or very careful, and they will be stingy, and because if a child receives excessive pressure and punishment, they will experience anxiety over the bowel movements. So they basically become so anal, that is very fussy and dainty, nitpicking, very particular, very prissy, or very old womanish. You know what is an analog clock and a digital clock? There won't be any display lights in the analog clock. When I say an interior analog of the exterior world, what? Like the needles of the watch, they're behaving because a person or thing seen as comparable to another. Because whenever I say an analog watch, you immediately compare with a digital watch. So similarly, basically anything that is as comparable as another thing, it could be used the word analog, an interior analog, comparable of the exterior world. There are two spelling, A-N-A-L-O-G and A-N-A-L-O-G-U-E. Both are same meaning. In signal representation, there is analog, which means continuous, and digital means it is discrete time intervals, not the continuous time intervals as in analog. When I say analogy, Shereen remembers about logic. Yes, analogy is something related with logic because it is a comparison between two things, and the comparison is used to determine the relationship between two different set of things. For example, bark is to dog as meow is to cat. So they first, for example, another example is socks are to left feet, gloves are to, obviously we'll say, hands. So analogy creates a relationship based on a connection between two ideas. By establishing this relationship, the new idea is introduced through a familiar comparison, thus making the new concept easier to grasp. So there are another analogies like he is as strong as an ox. The analogy, it's analogy. Analogy compares the man's strength to the strength of an animal, suggesting he is very strong. The box is as light as a feather. This is common analogy. The weight of the box is being compared to the weight of the feather. Since feather is very light, the analogy suggests that the box is also very light. So it is basically comparing two things that are similar in order to better understand a term or an idea, the similar meaning but different things. There are another analogies like mother and home. So they also says This is similar to teacher and school. And they also say battery and flashlight is equal to hard drive and computer. There are analogous colors, which means similar in some way to another thing or situation and therefore able to be compared with it. Basically, it is similar or resembling or comparable. Paddle of a whale and the fin of a fish are analogous.
Analogy. Analogy. Analogous. Analogous.
We can say sports is in some ways analogous to life, which is similar. So if you see, this is humans bone, this is cheetah's bone, this is whales, and this is bat. All look analogous, which means they are performing the similar function but having a different evolutionary origin, such as the wings of insects and birds, but it performs the same function. Analogous similarity between potato and sweet potato. Both are starchy food items, and there are analogous colors. Analogous colors are groups of 3 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, and red, orange and red, orange are examples. This term refers to analogy. So these are the analogous colors, like red, and the next is orange, and all are having a common hue. So we all know what is analyze. It's examine something methodically and in detail, typically in order to explain and interpret. Basically, it is testing. We need to analyze our results more clearly. It is also discover or reveal something through close examination. He tried to analyze exactly what was going on. And there is something called psychoanalysis, which is focus on unconscious emotional conflict, find the roots of their anxiety. Psychoanalysis examine or treat a person or their behavior using psychoanalysis. Don't try to psychoanalyze her, just listen to her. Basically, it is like judging their behavioral characteristic, can also be technically called as psychoanalysis. So psychoanalysis is a system of psychological theory and therapy which aims to treat medical disorders by investigating an interaction of conscious and unconscious elements in the mind and bringing the repressed fears and conflicts into the conscious mind by techniques such as dream interpretation and free association with them. In grammar also, we analyze a sentence using the subject, verb, adverb, or there are so many object, complement. So it also has analysis of grammatical structure, has parts of speech, agreement, structural analysis, and grammatical constituents. So basically it's about analyzing a word into its grammatical constituents. When I say analytical, it means analytical or analytical. It means relating to or using analysis or logical reasoning or systematically investigating or inquiring something using logic. So it will be precise and accurate. So we can say it will be well organized. When I asked Shereen what comes in your mind when you hear the word anarchy, she said it's like an arc. But the meaning of anarchy is exactly opposite arc, because arc is organized. But anarchical means it's without law or order. It's disorganized or rebellious, chaotic. So when I say he must ensure public order in a country threatened with anarchy. So threatened with anarchy means threatened with a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority or other controlling systems. So when I say an anarchic and bitter civil war, it means with no controlling rules or principles to give order. Even in a comedy or humor uncontrolled by convention, you can call it as an anarchic wit. His anarchic wit, W-I-T, his anarchic wit. An anarchist is a person who believes in or tries to bring about anarchy. You can also call him an agitator or terrorist, guerrilla. Or if you call an anarchist newspaper, it is relating to or supporting anarchy or anarchist. It's rebellious or ungovernable thoughts, ideas. Though it spells like anathema, it is anathema. Anathema, it is just sounding like Tilottama name. Can a name be a curse, like Tilottama be a curse? Because anathema is a formal curse by a pope or a council of the church, excommunicating a person or denouncing a doctrine. The pope laid special emphasis on the second of these anathemas, which means he banned it, he cursed it, and not to be used anymore, because it is considered to be evil or disgrace or offensive. And sometimes anathema also means any person of intense dislike or of loathing. Okay, that's not a nice way to greet your old army sergeant and someone treats you like, hey, hi. You just say that's not a nice way because you feel it is offensive. So the amount of money spent at general election is anathema to me, the youngsters are saying. Those money is like a curse to us. The opposite of anathema is love, blessing, delight. You like it. So anathema is you intensely dislike. Another example is a lot of people will find this anathema. This anathema sounds like enemy. Enemy is an anathema. You bitter enemy whom you detest is also called as anathema. After hearing the verdict, he was muttering anathemas, which means it is not used now. It's literary, so let's not. It means strong curse. Something or someone that one vehemently dislike. Also. Racial hatred are anathemas to her. When you see this word, you call it as anatomy. It is not Tommy the dog. It is anatomy, the tummy in the human beings, because it is something related to the human being. Because anatomy is the branch of science concerned with the bodily structure of humans, animals, or other living organisms, especially as revealed by dissection and the separation of parts. When I say descriptions of the cat's anatomy and behavior, it is the description of cat's bodily structure. Basically, anatomy is also examination, especially of bodily structure. And informally, it is a person's body. For example, when I say every part of his anatomy hurts, which means every part of his body hurt. Anatomical abnormalities is relating to bodily structure. It's also the study of the structure or internal workings of something, a detailed anatomy of a society and its institutions. Anatomy. Successful comedy is notoriously difficult to anatomize. It's examine and analyze in detail, and an anatomist is an expert in anatomy. And basically, his anatomize is dissecting body. He was sentenced to be hanged and then anatomized, which means his body was dissected and sometimes the internal body's organs are taken. Ancestor is a person, typically one more remote than a grandparent, from whom one is descended. He could trace his ancestor back to James I, the king. It could also be early type of animal or plant from which others have evolved. The ancestor of most dolphins is not clear. In fact, early version of a machine or a system, etc. is also called ancestor. This instrument is an ancestor of the lute. Ancestral is of belonging to or inherited from an ancestors, the family's ancestral home. And ancestry is origin or background of something. The book traces the ancestry of women's poetry. He was proud of his Irish ancestry as one's family or ethnic descent. Or it could be evolutionary or genetic line of descent of an animal or plant. The ancestry of the rose is extremely complicated. You all know what an anchor means. An anchor is a fastening related thing. Basically, it is heavy object attached to a cable or chain and used to moor a ship to the sea bottom, typically having a metal shank with a pair of curved barbed flukes at one end. Ship was anchored in the lee of the island. Moor a ship to the sea bottom with an anchor is the meaning of this. So basically it is secure, fasten, attach. And the next meaning is provide with a firm basis or foundation. It is important that policy be anchored, which means provide a firm basis with to some acceptable theoretical basis. It is important that policies be anchored to some acceptable theoretical basis. which means it should be the foundation. The liberals are the anchor of the new coalition. Liberals are the foundation, they want to say. Or it is the person or thing which provides stability or confidence in an otherwise uncertain situation. The European community is the economic anchor of the new Europe. The next meaning is presenter of a television or a radio related. For example, North American and Anchorman or Anchorwoman is an anchor basically. He signed off after 19 years as CBS News anchor. A television or radio program presenter or coordinator, present and coordinate is also North Americanly called. Example, she anchored a television documentary series. Basically, a large and prestigious department store prominently sited in a new shopping center is also called as anchor. And in British, informally, the brakes of a car is called anchor. This idiot in front slammed on his anchors at a crossing. Can you believe that anchors, which means the ship anchors, are heavy and stops the ship? Similarly, the brakes of the car stops the car, so it is also called as an anchor. When you see this, don't pronounce Anchorage. It is not Anchorage, it is Anchorage. It is the plant needs firm anchorage, means it needs it needs a secured action of securing something to the base or the state of being secured. Okay, an area of the coast which is suitable for a ship to be. And the area of the coast which is suitable for a ship to anchor is also called the anchorage area. It is basically a port or harbor or moorings or marina. It's actually a port. Have you ever heard of Anchorage in computer image editing? It's something related to computer image editing. Anchorman is a person who presents and coordinates a live television or radio program involving other contributors, or it is the central or most dependable contributor to something. The anchorman of the hands-fire batting in cricket. So anchorman is the most central person. The member of a relay team who runs the last leg is also called an anchorman. Basically, something related to the sports and the sports presenting. Obviously, the TV anchor man. We all know what an ancient is. An ancient is belonging to the very distant past and no longer in existence. The ancient civilizations. And what is coming to your mind when I say the word ancillary? The celery leaves. Celery leaves are additional to coriander leaves in the dishes. Similarly, ancillary means additional or auxiliary. Something which functions in a supplementary or supporting role. Undergraduate courses of 3 main subjects with related ancillaries, which means additional courses. Or it is, when I say ancillary staff, they are the additional staffs who provide necessary support to the primary activities or operation of the organization, system, etc. Ancillary and auxiliary look similar, but ancillary means providing necessary support to the primary activities or operation of an organization, whereas auxiliary means providing additional or supplementary support or help. Nor it is not the necessary support, it is a secondary support. Ancillary is providing the primary support. An ancillary has subordination, secondary importance, etc. And auxiliary does not have secondary importance. So ancillary is more important than auxiliary. Ancillary means accessory, or auxiliaries also could be a meaning. There's no much difference. Secondary or supporting. Ancillary 19 was merely paragraph 19 was merely ancillary to paragraph 16, which means in addition to something else but not as important. We all know what and or and in American and in British, but do you know what is the Boolean operator and operator? There is an operator called and operator, which gives the value 1 if and only if all the operands are 1, or otherwise has a value of 0. Or in electrical circuit, circuit which produces an output signal only when signals are received simultaneously through all input connection. Getting better and better. Just to emphasize a progressive change, connecting two identical comparatives. I cried and cried. What comes in your mind when I say the word andante or andante? Andante is American, and andante sometimes reminds me of Antarctica, andante, but it means slow. It's like tempo. It's basically used in the music, not a hill. Antarctica is like a big area. It's a big area in your human body. So from here comes the song, because andante means like your walking pace. That's slow. You have to sing. Usually they say the speed at which a passage of music is or should be played. Okay, the rate of speed of motion or activity, the pace of the music. So this is andante is just your walking pace. Okay, there are so many other meanings like prestissimo means very very fast, and presto is very fast. Allegra is fast, and moderato is moderately, and andante is walking pace. Adagio is slow and stately. So yeah, also especially as a direction in a moderately slow tempo.
Androgynous. Androgynous. Androgynous.
This word is very dated word. Androgynous. Androgynous is like it's dated, having the physical characteristics of both sexes. It's hermaphrodite. Like it partly male and partly female in appearance, of interminate sex, a stunningly androgynous dancer. Androgynous. Maybe the word anactaude or anactaude resembles the frog's toad, but it is not about frog. It's about the story, amusing, basically a short, amusing or interesting story about a real incident or person is called anactaude. He told anactaude about his job. It is a short account of an interesting or humorous incident. Stacey always had an anecdote to share with her friends. It is sometimes a story within a story, a short account or narrative of an interesting or amusing incident, often intended to illustrate or support some point. Already you are speaking a story, and within that story, if you want to make it more interesting, you speak anecdotes. Most anecdotes are funny. This word is similar to antidote. Antidote is actually a medicine that counteracts poison or something that counteracts an unpleasant situation or feeling, whereas anecdote is a short, amusing or interesting story that concerns real people and incidents. And antidote originates from Greek, and anecdotes originates from the Greek too. And antidotes adjective form is antidotal, and anecdotes adjective form is anecdotal. Sometimes depiction of a minor narrative incident in a painting also. The use of inversions of hierarchy, anecdotes and paradox by the painters. When someone says once when I was in middle school, the kids would always, he was saying like this, and another say, hey, I remember the time when I had to carry my this thing. So it is, yeah, it anew or anew. Anew is British. Yeah, this is the only word in ever. It's a new thing I'm seeing, because anew, usually anew could be American, but here anew is British and anew is American. Basically, anew is in a new or a different and typically more positive way. Her career had begun anew with a lucrative Japanese modeling contract, which means once more, again. Tear which filled her eyes anew again, like once more. Tears filled her eyes anew.